Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Whole Reffin' Show. Your host here, Jamie Tucker, Mr. 2020 himself. And Mike Orange is back with us, my buddy Mike. And, we had the two episodes out from last week that after the Whole Reffin' Show was off for a few weeks, came back. And we were talking about WCW and different various topics. But before we get into that, we will talk about WCW some more. We're going to touch on some things that we feel we left a little um, undone about talking about, I guess we can say. And we're going to do that and maybe even talk about some current wrestling topics. Mike, I don't know. I know you read a lot of the wrestling news and keep up with the Raw shows week to week. Sometimes I miss them. Is there anything newsworthy that you've seen recently that we should talk about? Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, 39 years old, very young. Um, and I've seen guys in this business pass away very young. I've known some, and it's never a good time to hear it. You know, and absolutely, I agree with you. The thoughts, prayers, everything, man. Hopefully, you get his family and friends through this, and any of the fans that were fans of his, I hope they can lift up everybody with prayer too. And yeah, really, really bad, man. I hate to hear that all the time. I had a good buddy. It was maybe I think not Earl. Anyway, my buddy down in Florida a few years ago, he um he passed away inside the ring, went unconscious, had a heart attack, went into a coma, never came out of it, and a few weeks later, after laying in the hospital, they finally said there was nothing else they could do. And his name was Wayne Van Dyke, and he was gone. So anytime you hear this, it's very sad. Absolutely, absolutely. Um, so what about something else we were talking about? Because we didn't know if we both heard about it. Homicide. Homicide's going through some stuff. Yes. That's dude. That's horrible. That's terrible. D was always just one of the cool guys to talk to, go over matches with, get in the ring and perform with. Um, I don't know, man. That's horrible too, man. I'm telling you, you don't like to hear news like that either. And D's so young as himself still, and he did so much in TNA for the X division and Ring of Honor, and man, you know, it's never good to hear this kind of stuff. And I know in the post he posted online, he said it's not really saying goodbye, and who knows, maybe I'd like to see D down the road. Maybe this is not his last match. Maybe it is just for now. And but God bless him. I hope everything works out for him. But really nice dude, man. Can't say nothing but good things about him. Uh, moving along, John Cena came back to Raw on Monday. I understand. Um, I hear he was heavily booed, and the fans reacted the way that they wanted him. They wanted them to react. Um, by talking about this, what if anything did you actually see the stuff on Monday night? Absolutely. Like I said, I didn't actually get a chance to see it, and it's been on my list this week to go back and watch Raw and take out some of the good points of the show. But everything I hear from it, it's good because it's going in the direction they want it. It's actually getting over with the people to boo him. Also I think a lot of these fans that are actually currently booing John Cena wanted to boo John Cena. So that's giving them their big wish, like, hey, I can actually hate on this guy, enjoy myself, and and the little kids now are probably booing him too, like and stuff. So it's really cool to see that. Um, but people want to compare it to the Hogan turn back in '96. Uh, I don't really think you can compare the two because we're in different times. We're different eras. And then on top of that, we got a different fan base too than what we had in 1996. So you can't compare them. I just think that each era was different, and just enjoy what you're seeing if you're a pro wrestling fan. So okay. Well, Mike, I'll be honest with you. I think I can find, and this is nothing against John Cena, but I can find a lot more better things to do with 25 grand than to have lunch with him. So, yeah, I'll pass. See, you be wasting the 25 grand. You can't even see him. They are. They are. I mean, people use them every day in some way. Um, that's good, man. I'm glad you watched it, got your feedback. I've read articles on it, news throughout the week, and everybody's saying similar things to what you're saying. So I look forward to actually finally getting to watch it, and who knows, maybe I'll get that in the next day or two, so I know exactly how it went down. So moving along, we last time we talked about WCW 2000. We talked about David Arquette and Vince Russo winning the WCW World Heavyweight Championship in that year of 2000. They were months apart. Arquette came first. That was on the April 26th episode of Thunder that was taped and shown a day later. We already talked about that. But we actually went back, and both of us watched Thunder. Um, so the Thunder show itself, when I watched it, you had Sting on it. They were doing an angle with Sting, and he came in with blood all over him from 2 days ago from Nitro. Um, and then you had the tag match at the end, what was Bischoff and Jarrett set up at the beginning of the show. They brought in Arquette, like they beat him up. They brought him to the ring. They got Page to come out, and Page was wanting to get Arquette back, and they made a deal to do the tag match. So that set it up at the beginning. Um, I like the setup. The whole idea of it all was great. Cannot complain at all. I think it was a good segment. And after watching the actual match itself, I will say this. Um, it wasn't that bad. It was maybe 5 or 6 minutes because I tried to time it. It fell in that area. And the finish, um, you know, Bischoff takes the pin after a spear from Marquette. So there we go. So realistically, if you had a match between Bischoff and Arquette beats him, nobody would have batted an eye. So with Arquette winning the title the way he did, I think it made sense, and it really wasn't anything to really get upset over. But over the years, if you listen to people, it was nonstop. Arquette winning the title was one of the worst things they ever did. But by the way he won it in this match, the way he did, he really didn't hurt pro wrestling or WCW because he didn't pin, for example, DDP or Jarrett. What is your take? Yep. Yep. Uh-huh. Right. Yeah. Right. So the only thing you look at there and is the positioning of the guys was probably a little off when the referee was coming down in his positioning. Um, so yeah, I could see that, but I just think the positioning was off on the finish that was in question. And but yeah, otherwise the match itself was good. And we need to make a note. The first ref of the match was DDP's wife, Kimberly. Kimberly was actually the appointed referee of this one. So um, she went down. I believe Paige kisses her, and then she sells it, goes down the corner, and I believe that's she stays that way until the pinfall. But but overall, when you talk about that match, after going back and watching it, because it's been 25 years ago, it's hard to remember things off the top of your head. Um, and I probably had not watched it since the day it happened. So that's another reason. A lot of wrestling over the years I watch dozens of times because it's some of my favorite stuff to watch. But this in particular, Thunder, I haven't watched it since the day it happened. So, but nonetheless, I enjoyed the tag match. I thought the finish was all right. Didn't really bury anybody. Arquette pinned Bischoff. I have no problem with that. And by looking back at it now, and I think about people bitching about him winning the title, um, it was only a few short weeks anyway. So nothing really to complain about. Got some eyes on the company that they wouldn't have had otherwise. Um, and there you go. They got on the front of the USA Today because of this. I don't think a regular title change on Thunder between Jarrett and DDP would have drew that much publicity at the time. So there you go. You got on the front page that David Arquette's the WCW World Champion. So that's pretty cool in itself. So, and then we got to also talk about Tony Schiavone. Uh, was one of the main components on that finish happening. So, and it's out there for everybody to see. Schiavone talks about it on his show, what happened when, and then you can also go to Russo's own podcast. He talks about it. And so there you go. So if you want to throw any heat today, people, if you're still mad about it, you might want to go after Schiavone because it clearly, by listening to both these guys talk, Schiavone says it was kind of a collaboration between the two. And then, if I ain't mistaken, Mike, Russo actually puts it all on Tony. Sure, absolutely. But then again, I'm not going to sit here and crucify either one of them for the decision after going back and watching this because I actually, me and you both watched the whole Thunder, the whole broadcast. They had other matches on there, notable superstars, notable guys, uh, and the show was not bad at all. I cannot complain about it. Uh, during the time that people were saying WCW was in some of its worst TV, um, I beg to differ. I think the earlier years, some of that was really rough to watch when they were in their transition over first couple years. But you know, it is what it is. Each of their own. But I still think with the ratings the way they were, and which were lower than they had been, but not super totally bad. Uh, that WCW could still been a competitor um, in 2001 when they actually shut doors. I think that they could have still went on the way they were. Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, because on this episode as well, Mark Marrow actually made an appearance with his boxing coach and did a segment with Tank Abbott. But as if I recall correctly, I don't think WCW did anything else with Marrow after that week. Um, from the stuff I've seen and the stuff I remember when I was there, I do not remember Mark Marrow being around anymore after that one night. Yeah, because when I think back, um, WCW during that time frame, um, you're looking at okay, this is April, late April, and then the next week, um, Mero wasn't on that episode, and then the next thing I know, because I was doing just house shows in April and partially through half of May. And then I go on the road and start doing Nitros Thunders and everything at the end of May. And Mero was at no TVs from when I was there. So if he did anything else at all that I can't remember, it's very little to even be notable. But what I'm trying to get at here is to have such a star in Mark Mero and bring him in for 1 week and wasn't able to capitalize on him being there is really a shame in itself because him and Tank Abbott could have had some kind of a angle with that because with Mark Mero's past boxing skills prior to being a pro wrestler would have been so awesome to see them two square off and some kind of feud of some kind. And Mark Mero, everybody, well, most people know wrestling fans. He had his run with the WWF, but he also, before that, was Johnny B. Bad of WCW fame. And I actually love the Johnny B. Bad character. So if any of you guys are listening and don't know what we're talking about, Johnny B. Bad, you need to go back and look up Johnny B. Bad. The early days when he started in 91, WCW, and he leaded up to having a feud with DDP actually, and they had some really good matches. But you really got to go out of the way to look up some John B. Bad early WCW stuff. Um, really big fan of his during that time. That's correct. There you go. And I got to ask you, Mike. We never have talked about this. Have you seen the movie? Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'm gonna tell you, I did watch it during the time, uh, because I was not only because well, I would have went anyway, but I was employed by WCW, and I went to Ready to Rumble, and I thought it was a good movie for what it was. The character, the main character was Jimmy. I can't. Was it Jimmy, the King Jimmy, or something? I can't remember, but uh, I can't remember the actor's name. But he portrayed that role really well. Arquette was really good in it. Then you had all the WCW performers, and but yeah, overall, I mean, it's a kind of a comedy movie as well, and I thought it was pretty good. Really can't complain about it. I enjoyed it, but it was pro wrestling in it, so that's probably why. Um, but yeah, absolutely. You need to watch it. Well, well, yeah, sure. It is a classic now. It's over 25 years old. You hear that, guys? You need to look up Ready to Rumble, whether you stream it, buy it, or whatever. Go out of your way to watch that. And if you're a true wrestling fan, and especially of WCW, go back and look at the Johnny B. Bad years. Being that we brought up Mark Mara, and a lot of you may look at it and go, "Hey, he was from WWF." No, he was from WCW. So anyway, moving along. So we talked about that. Now, if you go to the episode, was it September? I don't know the date right off. I don't even have that in front of me, but it's late September, September 25th, maybe. It happened in Uniondale, New York, Nassau Coliseum. Vince Russo becomes the WCW World Champion. Okay. So we both freshly watched this episode yesterday, so it should be in our head enough to talk about. This episode of Nitro in question opens up. I love the way it opens up, and I don't remember this, but it's great. So Russo shows up. He gets out of the back of the vehicle. I think it was a limo. Uh, he's got Jeremy Borash with him. And Jeremy Borash is just putting him over, walking in the building. And it was kind of funny, but it was still good. It was good to watch. And then the opening video going in with that, talking about Russo going for the world title. And it was he did a promo and it showed the clips from it that it was always a uh, dream of his to win the WCW world title when he was a kid. And it was just really cool to see that. So he Vince Russo actually pushed this and made it sound really legitimate and like a real title match between two pro wrestlers. Oh, absolutely. And we're talking about this show. We had if I remember correctly, there was really good matches on this episode too. It was Sting and Lance Storm worked a match, and I know uh, you talked about how good you thought that match was. Um, you had so much going on. Jarrett was on the show. Jarrett worked General Erection, which was Hugh Morris. Just a really good show overall, man. Um, ICP, I remember this one because I was in it. ICP had the Insane Clown Posse had their match with the '70s guys, Mike Awesome. They had the weird looking Partridge Family bus, I call it, come out and actually got power bombed off the bus or something. Some move was done to the kid, to the Shaggy or whatever his name was of ICP. But it was a good show. You had that hardcore type of match with the bus coming in, something a little different. You had the Jarrett and Rection in a match, which was good. Sting and Lance Storm had a match. It was good, which I wish their match would have went a little bit longer than what it did. But it wasn't entirely too short, but it could have been a little bit longer. And then the cage match with Russo going over for the world title. And which, on that one, that finish was good. Um, you know, because it Goldberg comes out, his music plays, he comes out. Booker's like looking at the door, like, what's going on? He comes in the cage. Goldberg, that is, comes in the cage. He's like, they high five or whatever with Booker. And then Russo sees Booker trying to get out of the cage. He starts running at him. But when that happens, here comes Goldberg, spears Russo through the cage. Russo goes through the cage, hits the floor before Booker even gets out of the cage. So, by looking at this, the finish was good. The only thing that I questioned in the finish is Booker could have walked out of that cage after Goldberg went in to get Russo. There's a good amount of time there for him to get out and win it and keep the world title himself. What do you think? Yeah, maybe a little more, but more than enough time for him to win the title himself. Yep. 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 Yeah. I mean, I get what they were trying to do there with oh, it looks like Booker retained the belt, but Russo gets through the cage. I understand where they were going with it. Um, so I guess that's the main thing if that got over. But Russo ultimately would I guess hit the floor um going through the cage like that with the spear before Booker steps out of the cage, and that's how Russo wins the world title. So I get the finish. I understand it. On paper, it looks great. Um, and it wasn't a bad finish. It didn't look bad. It's just, you know, but then again, that's me and whoever, maybe you or whoever else looks at it, trying to say armchair quarterback it and go, hey, well, all this time was here. Well, it was, but nonetheless, Vince Russo's your world champion. He walks out of New York, the WCW world champion. And the finish was good. It's just you got that little bit of time frame there. You wonder why Booker's doing so much standing around. But other than that, I get where they were going with it. I understand it totally. It's not a bad finish. Just that little bit of time frame there that you sit there and question. Uh, mhm. Correct. Could be. Could be. It could have been a lot of things. It could have been Booker was right on cue with his part, and then the people in the back didn't hit the music on time. The time cue for that held it up, and they're just waiting to get through the finish. Could have been a many of things. When you're doing stuff live like that, it's really hard to gauge it. So it could be. It could be a lot of things. But nonetheless, if I had to talk about it and rate it, say it was good or bad, I would say I'm okay with that finish as well. Because the finish was The only reason Russo won the world title was because Goldberg speared him through the cage and he hit the floor in this world title match before Booker did. So it made sense. So I can live with that finish after going back and looking at it over almost 25 years ago, and I can say that you know Russo win the world title was not that bad of a big deal either. So people that complain about it, once again, you're making too much out of it. So yeah, yes, that was great. I'm that was so awesome. I remember them taping that segment, pre-taping it because we did all that stuff. That was taped actually earlier in the day. A lot of the backstage stuff is taped during the day. Not everything, but a lot of segments are. And yeah, Beetlejuice, nice guy though. That whole group of guys from the Howard Stern show, they were always nice guys. They'd gawk up, speak to you, all cordial. A lot of them strange, got things going on, but overall, I mean, I can't complain about them guys either. It was cool to see them do the contest with all the girls, man. That was pretty good. And they get into a little fight, Medeja and Leia Meow, and they got Tori Wilson out there and a couple of the others, and that was pretty good segment. And then of course, us refs had to come down and ruin the party and try to break it up. Yeah, sorry. I think don't tell. I ain't gonna tell the wife this, but that's our chance to pull women apart. I'm sure she will, and she knows I'm joking. I hope. I am. I'm sure we will. So after watching this, and and other things throughout WCW 2000, 2001, a lot of notable things were still going good for the company. Um, you had the little feud there with Sting, and Jarrett does a little thing because Jarrett was dressing up as Sting, and they had all these fake Stings come out, Surfer Sting and Crow Sting, and all that in the next couple months. And um, Jarrett actually comes out as a Surfer Sting on one episode. You talk about that, and Jarrett, Jarrett's always been good on the mic. Um, can't say nothing but great stuff about his promos. And, a lot of people look back at that year of WCW 2000 and go, Jeff Jarrett was pushed really heavily as the main guy. And here's my thing, you got to look. Jarrett just came back to WCW after going back to WWF for a few years. And he wasn't the world champion at the WWF, but he was high up there on the card ranking. He was tag team champions with Owen Hart in that time frame, the Intercontinental Champion a few times. He was the NWA North American Champion when they did the NWA gimmick when Cornette was there and had Bradshaw and Wyndham with them. Just did some really cool stuff. Um, but to me, Jarrett was always a top guy. I mean, you're the Intercontinental Champion or you're a World Tag Team Champion. You're a top guy. You're just not the World Champion. You still can be a top guy. And it's not about titles. It's about who can bring something to the table. I mean, look at all the years The Undertaker had no titles, but he is a top star and he was booked accordingly. He could make money without having a title. So when people down the year of Jarrett being on top and winning the title a few times and being the world champion and being the main guy, you also got to look at this, guys. He comes in at the Russo era. He just came from WWF to WCW around the same time as Vince Russo. Vince Russo trusted Jeff Jarrett. Vince Russo knew Jeff Jarrett. He knew what he brought to the table. He knew what kind of talent he is. He knew he could trust him. So that's one of the main reasons I think he thought so heavily of Jarrett and push Jarrett so much. And I have no problem with that. Jarrett is a third generation athlete and he's great at what he does. So I have no problem with that era of WCW. I had no problem with Jarrett coming in being a part of the new NWO at the first of 2000. No problem whatsoever. Russo could trust in this guy and he knew he could get good programs out of him. And one more thing, and I'll let you touch in on this if you'd like, but you also got to look at this, guys. When you go back to the 1980s, and who's booking Jim Crockett Promotions and the NWA and Mid Atlantic and all that from the mid 80s to the end? Dusty Rhodes. Why did Dusty win the title? Why was Dusty put in the main programs with Ric Flair? Because even though Dusty was the booker and the writer of this company, Dusty trusted Dusty. Dusty knew he could trust himself. He knew to push himself. So that's the end of that as well. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. When somebody gets that trust in you on that high level, um, it's really good. It's a really good thing. So um, the whole thing, is and Dusty got chastised for that over the years, and people talk crap about Rhodes over the years. But you got to look back and think, like I was saying, Dusty knew how to talk. Dusty knew how to work. He knew psychology of the matches. He knew how to put matches together. So he pushed a lot of people too. People try to act like Dusty Rhodes was selfish during his booking, but realistically, Dusty Rhodes wasn't. When Dusty was on top, he knew he could trust himself in doing them angles and working that program with Flair. He knew he could work that program with Tully Blanchard when the I Quit it wasn't I Quit. First Blood match, 1986, Starcade. Um, Dusty and Tully. Man, that's something I remember. I was there live for that in Greensboro, but as a kid. But anyway, Dusty gets so much heat for that, but he could trust himself, knowing what he could bring to the table and knowing he could produce. And that's what Russo did with Jarrett. And I hate that people talk about the year 2000 and even 2001. At the end, Jarrett was in a nice feud with the Rhodes. It was Jarrett and Flair in a feud with Dustin and Dusty towards the end there. Russo wasn't around at this time, but they still were pushing Jarrett pretty high on the card, right? Eh. So there you go. I think Jarrett could always produce. So that's why he was in the positions he was. And, and he was a top billing off of WWF TV. So why not? Why not push him as high as you can? That is, yep, I forgot about that. Yeah, Mickey J. Yep. Flair's part of the medical team. Yes. I forgot to mention that. Yes. That is true. He did. Not the redhead one though, right? Oh, okay. Okay. Yes. It was. Yes. Yes. Right. Okay. Okay. That's fine. Uh, but you are right. You brought up some key moments of the match that I did not. I failed to bring up with Flair and being a medic in it, and Luger passing in the pipe, and Russo hitting everybody with the lead pipe. But yeah. But if that helmet would have been on, I believe Russo, if I understand, we've heard that he would have probably held that title instead of relinquishing it the next week and having two guys wrestle for it. Am I right about that? Oh, absolutely. Because you got to think about if, let's say, Russo had plans for that to go a different route, and just because of having the concussion from the move or whatnot caused that, we really don't know what the plans were. So it's interesting. It's maybe he didn't know Okay, so let's say that Russo wouldn't had a concussion. Russo that came back the next week, the world champion, wouldn't relinquish the belt, wouldn't have the two guys, which were Jarrett and Booker, wrestle for that belt in San Francisco on October 2nd. Let's say he didn't do that. Russo would have been the world champ and maybe just did a promo and kept the title, because you have 30 days to defend the World Heavyweight Championship anyway. Russo could have milked that week after week, just chastise people, have them chase him off, and then hell, maybe even lose it on a pay per view or something. Who knows what he was thinking? But it's kind of cool to think about since that did happen. What would he have done? What was he going to do? And he's really never said what their real plans were. But it'd be interesting to know or find out if we could find out. I don't know if he'll ever mention that. It'd be a nice question to ask. Maybe to get a more of a feel of what his original plans was being the world heavyweight champion. Right. Yeah. So, but he had that problem with Flair at the time, but then Goldberg just came back and wanted to kill him. Basically. Uh, I mean, I'm just thinking about Flair wrestled Bischoff. Um, I believe years before. I believe it was Flair and Bischoff. It might have been. I know Zabisco worked Bischoff, but anyway, uh, what if they dropped the belt back on Flair? WCW was Flair's company. He beats Russo somewhere down the line, and then we'd have had in all honesty, going into Starcade, we'd have had instead of Steiner and I'm trying to think who Steiner worked at Starcade. I think we may need to go look this up, but I believe Steiner worked. Oh shoot, Sid. But what if we had Jarrett and Flair at Starcade? That year. I mean, drop it to Flair or maybe even Goldberg because Goldberg had speared him anyway through the cage. But then Goldberg would have been the world champion going into Goldberg ended up with a program with Luger. I don't know if you remember that. Luger and Buff were messing with him, and then all that good stuff, and had the Sarge come back, Dwayne Bruce. They trained Goldberg, and then come in with the program. So that's their program. So that's the way that program went. So I would assume it wouldn't have been Goldberg. It would have probably been uh it'd probably been better to go with Flair, maybe. That way Flair could have worked a program with Jarrett and end off the year. But it didn't go that way. Obviously, we know the way it went. Maybe that's where it was going. Maybe it wasn't. It'd be nice to know where they were going with it, being that Russo got that concussion that week. Um, but we got where we got, and we knew how it happened. So that's the way it ended. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Yeah. Which I'm not saying it's a bad main event. On Starcade, right off the bat, I can't remember that year. Can you tell us who worked Jarrett that pay per view? Okay. 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 I remember some kind of program going on October, November, all that good stuff. Okay. Um, well, I'm not going to crap on that match. I mean, I like the Harris brothers, even their gimmick, not just as people, but their gimmick. And I've always liked Jeff, working with Jeff. Um, So yeah, I guess we can deal with that. But I just look at it like this. Um, I think Scott Steiner was a good world champion for WCW. Uh, but Sid came back, well known athlete, well known guy. Everybody knows what happens to his leg a month later, up in January, and then he snaps it, and real sickening. I was there that night, and I talked about that before in the podcast as well, about all that. But yeah, just bad timing for Sid, man. Uh, yeah, that was bad. I don't know if you remember seeing that, but that was at Sin 2001, January 14th. Hey, Goldberg was wanting me to go out, but when he was trying to uh, push me through Gorilla, the agents back there at the time was like, no, 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 because they was wanting to get over Animal's debut on the pay per view when he came out. So I'm just doing what the company's telling me to do, and like I said before, I understand Goldberg's um, concern and his theory on it, but you know it is what it is, and it was a bad injury, and I'm sure it was a learning experience from everybody involved, not just in that ring that night, but from everybody involved to go through something like that. So, but yeah, it's a memorable moment in wrestling history, but just a bad thing for Sid, man. I felt bad for the guy because Sid was generally a really sweet, great human being, and and by asking him to do the move that caused it, and just insinuated and insisted that he had to do it by John Laurinaitis, uh, it's just horrible, because Sid did not have to do that big move, a big boot jumping off the second rope to the face to put himself over. He did not need to do that. It was just uh, a stupid thing to ask of such a big guy to come down on his ankle with that much weight. Not saying that anybody thought that would happen, but come on, dude. He did not have to do that. No, he's been in the business for, at this point, man, probably this is what 2000, and this is 2001 we're talking about. 15 years or so, was over in WCW, as a horseman, even went to WWF, had that program with Hogan when he turned on him as Sid Justice, came back to WCW, was former WCW world champion. Uh, he didn't need any of that. His career just spoke for itself. And he never needed anything that big of a move to come off the rope, as being such a big guy to be over anyway. He never needed that before, and he wasn't going to need it that night either. But you know, um, it's widely known that it was John Laurinaitis' idea, and he insisted on it, and that's where we're at with that, and that's how Sid ultimately did that injury. And but Sid could have done, to my opinion, he could have done a regular boot to the face, just send the guy off the rope, and it would have meant just as much as that move. Mhm. Um, it would have made interesting TV, and it would have been watchable because my main thing was Russo could have been the excuse my French on this, the chicken shit hill, and could have played that off through the match, and the guys would basically be fighting each other. Russo would get little shots in, like run off and dodge them. But it could have been workable. It could have been really worked. Yeah, absolutely. And I think they could have done something with that. They could have made a really good TV out of it. Uh, absolutely, because Russo had that arrogant northeastern northeast guy from New York that when he starts to talk and ramble, he pisses you off, and he could have played that very well. Absolutely. Um, I don't dislike Russo's character at all. Um, I think his character became a good character on television. I actually enjoy this. To be honest, when I watch back the old Nitros and Thunders, I actually would rather watch this Russo than the Russo he came in '99 when they didn't even show him on camera, and he was just the powers that be. So yeah, um, I think it would have been really good. Absolutely. Well, that is a little more of a yeah, no. Let's don't do that. And if you did, it'd have to be really short match. We're talking about 3 to 4 minutes. Just something simple. Um, but Bischoff has that background in karate. He could have pulled off a little bit more than the other two. In all honesty, but it overall that might have been a little yeah, you may not want to see that as much. No, no, no. Wow. No, this ain't no Ricky Steamboat Ric Flair match, bro. We can't do that. Well, maybe. Well, by the looks of it, he took a hell of a beating, so maybe. Uh I no. If we with no, with Bischoff's background in karate the way he's got it, if we would really go on actual athleticism and skill, I don't know Russo's background. I don't know if he did any sports when he was younger, but I think Bischoff would have took them both if it was legitimate. Wait, see, well, you're wrestling booking here, bro. So that's why. Well, that would actually been pretty cool. They should have had it in Texas. Russo come out in cowboy jersey, cowboy hat, cowboy boots, and that'd been pretty cool, right? But let me ask you this, Mike: what if he comes out like that, right? And then he craps over the Cowboys. What would you think then? That's right. Cowboy Revolution Apparel Company, cowboyrevolution.com. Go there and look at all the great stuff they offer. And at checkout, enter Jamie T123 to get 15% off today. Well, also, it's been a little while since I've had a snack or anything to eat. And right now, you know what hit the spot, Mike? They do sound good right now. I don't know. They got peanut butter chocolate, the cake batter. I'm telling you, bro, you can't go wrong, bro, when you eat a David protein bar. 28 grams of protein, 150 calories. They smell good. They don't smell like rotten eggs in your pocket. I know I keep saying that every week, but you got to get you some David protein bars today, tomorrow, whenever you decide to do it. Go to davidprotein.com/Jamie T. Get the savings on your stuff today. Get you some protein bars. They got a value pack with different flavors in it together. You cannot beat it. You always talk about the blueberry pie one. Nothing wrong with that. So, while we're still on the topic of Russo later on goes into, he actually does the writing for, well, before we go that far, let's talk about Bash 2000, the night that um, Jarrett lays down for Hogan in the middle of the ring. Um, I know we got off subject here. We talked about title wins by Arquette and a title win by Russo and a couple other things that we were watching. But now that you look back at that, Mike, we're looking back 25 years later. 25 years ago almost, this happened in July of 2000. We did get, that's right. But we did get something good out of it, right? We got Booker T as the world heavyweight champion that night. But my only problem is this. What if, now they saying Hogan was playing political control there, right? So I think that's why they had to do what they had to do. It's kind of like the Montreal screw job, right? The Montreal screw job, everybody remembers that, where Vince McMahon screws over Bret Hart in his home country of Canada on a pay per view in November of 1997. So basically, all this was WCW's Montreal screw job, but it's in Daytona. So it's WCW Daytona screw job, I guess we can call it, whatever. So we know what happens there. It's been talked about wildly. Some people speculate that it's a work, that it's always been a work. But a lot of these people that were involved in this say it was not a work. Now, the original plan, if I remember correctly, was for Hogan to win the match that night, go off in the sunset, not come back to Halloween Havoc of that year and defend the title at Halloween Havoc. That's what I've heard. That's what a lot of people said. Now, we got Hogan, Penn, and Jarrett reluctantly didn't want to do it so he can just get the hell out of the ring because it's embarrassing him, right? It's an embarrassment, whatever. And then Jarrett comes back later, Booker wins the world title, and here we are. And I'm happy Booker won the world title. They said they went into the room that day, and everybody in it said, if the question was asked, if there's one guy on this roster that you'd give that world title to, who would it be right now? And everybody said Booker T. So I'm fine with that. I think Booker was well deserving when he got it, and he should have got it. And you couldn't have had a better match between two better men than Booker and Jarrett. Now, what if we got now? It had to be Booker and Jarrett anyway, because at the time Jarrett was the uh, world champion, if I remember correctly. That's why they put um, Jarrett in the main match with Booker, because they gave you the actual WCW World Title match they believe you should have got to begin with. So that made all sense. So this booking here is really not that off if you think about it, because that would have been the match anyway. If you'd have gave Booker a world title shot to begin with, it would have been with Jarrett anyway. So there you go. And you got the decisive finish there. And it was Booker T wins the world heavyweight title on pay-per-view. So there you go. That's what you got. You got the actual match that should have happened to begin with instead of Hogan being in there. I do remember that. Yes, that's correct. Scott Hall was so over with the people um, that it was a no-brainer. You had to use that. So you know, um, but yeah, he was gone because the whole time I was with WCW during my tenure, I didn't work one show with Scott Steiner. I'm sorry, Scott Hall. I don't know why it's Steiner. Scott Hall at all. But um, I just think it just made sense, and everybody knew that Kevin Nash was friends with Scott Hall, and if they did that angle, that it meant something. So that's why that went down. I believe it just meant something. Them two were the outsiders. Two peas in a pod, man, before, right? So you had to do it, and it made sense, and it made a good story to say farewell to Scott. When you did it that way, it made sense afterwards. It's like, well, he's gone, so there we go. We're done with that, and so yeah, I'm cool with that, even though he was gone already for a while, a few months. Correct. So the only thing I remember from Scott Hall during the time during 2000. That is not really good on the dates that this happened, but he was appearing at uh, ECW shows for Paul Heyman. So he did that, but he didn't do anything for WWE. Um, Nothing like that in that nature. I think he just did some, to my knowledge. I'm not even sure if he did TV for ECW. That's something to go look back on as well. But I know he did some house events. But that's about it. That's all I heard about Scott doing during that time. But that the whole storyline was good. That made sense. The only thing from that pay per view itself, they had a good cruiserweight match to open the show, and that was good for the cruiserweight championship. Scott Steiner was in the ring with Mike Awesome. That was one of the matches I refereed. They went all over the Daytona Center. I remember that. The cat gets involved towards the end. Um, but yeah, it was good U.S. title match. I also refereed the World Tag Team title match on this said pay per view with Chronic and the perfect event for the World Tag title. So all in all, the pay per view that night was really good. Canyon worked Booker T earlier on in the show, I believe, and Booker beat Canyon on that one. Because that was the match they were given with Booker. It wasn't announced for Booker to be for the world title. But ultimately, you got the world title match that the people deserved after the fact. So any um, shady or shadowness from the Russo and encounter with Hogan and with Jarrett and all that, I think that didn't mean nothing anymore, in my opinion, because the viewer left that arena and the viewer left that pay per view watching it at home. They left on a high note of a new era of WCW, a new WCW World Champion, and it's Booker T. Something new, something fresh. So, all in all, that was a really good pay per view, too. And once again, that's under a lot of that writing is under Russo. So there we go. So everybody talks crap about Russo, but we got a really good WCW World Champion out of it. Can't argue with that. Okay, bro. So, you know, talking about WCW 2000, once we trigger it, once I watch it, it triggers a lot of things from that time frame for me because I was there. And I'm glad that it gets talked about some on this podcast because it helps me remember. It helps me remember this stuff. And at times, other times I wouldn't. So it's always cool, and it's been great lately going back watching a lot of the older TVs, pay per views, and stuff like that because it reminds you of the stuff you did, but it also reminds you of the good and the bad that came out of it. But no one can sit at home right now and tell me there's not bad TV on AEW, there's not bad TV on WWE because it's always going to be the good and the bad, and it's always been that way. Pro wrestling's also a sport and entertainment industry that goes up and down with popularity. You'll have a big long run of popularity, and then it'll have a few down years, and it'll pick up again. But it's always been that way. So nothing's changed with that. Uh, Speaking of AEW, I just mentioned their name, and we're going way off topic again. But AEW recently had a match last night with Cope. Everybody knows him as Edge, and John Moxley, and Moxley gets hit in the back. And yeah, gets hit in the back of this board with nails on it. And it's sticking in his back. And it's one of the weirdest and kind of gross things I've seen. What do you think about what you saw? Because I saw it. I know you did. Correct. Yeah. My thought process is you're suplexing him onto this board with all these nails, excuse me, sticking out like they were, and the least little screw up on that suplex, bro. And that sounded like Vince Russo when I said that. But it could have been fatal. Well, hell yeah. 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 Yes. Right. 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 And you know, you said something about the getting the it's probably about what you said though, getting the viewership up. We do this crazy act, and it's between John Moxley from the WWE, which was Dean Ambrose, and you're looking at Cope, which was Edge from the WWE, doing this, just their names, and then they do something crazy. Maybe it's like, hey, the people that didn't watch it didn't tune in for some reason. It was like, hey, did you see what these guys did? And you know, garner up some interest, maybe. But you know, it's all about everything's about ratings. But you should never, in my opinion, never do anything out of the way um, that endangers someone that could potentially kill them. And that's exactly what that would happen if he'd have landed in the wrong area on that board. It went in more or whatever. I don't know. I can make up all these different scenarios, and some of them may sound stupid to people, but the main fact is you're putting your life on the line, and it's crazy. But then again, John Moxley likes that type of wrestling. He likes that type of style. He's from the GCW area, Nick Gage and all that, and he likes uh, he likes that type of wrestling. That's a little out there. So to him, it's probably just another day at work. And you know, kudos to you. I'm not going to, you know, I can't really say anything bad about him as a person or anything like that. But I just think that was a really risky move to take, no matter um, how good you are at this business or how professional you are or anything. That move there is risky. It's not taking a regular suplex and and following the right way. It's taking a move that hell, you don't know how you're really going to land on something like that. I mean, realistically, you really don't if you think about it. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, good for him. I always enjoy his work. I enjoy watching him. I enjoy his promos, and I can't say nothing bad about the guy. With his work or anything because he's good. He's really really good, and and I can't say anything about uh, him at all otherwise outside of that because I don't know him personally. But good performer, love his promos, love his wrestling. Always enjoyed him in WWE. Uh, I just don't want to see anybody get permanently injured or even worse. Is what I'm trying to get at. Uh-huh. Yeah. That I can't say. Um I don't know. Um mhm. Right. Um I tell you I'd like to see Strickland and him have a series of matches. An actual series of them, not just one or two, you know. Um Something cool with him cuz Strickland I liked I love to watch Strickland work. I think he's really good and but you know, maybe there's something deeper with the Jarrett story, you know, because that can't be the end of Jarrett. That's simple, you know. You lose that one match to Claudia, and then bam, there you are. You're out of the title picture. So I don't know. You could go several different ways with this, and who could win it or who's in the title picture. Um, I don't know, but yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, yes, yeah, absolutely, and I would be totally for that. I'd be a fan of that. Uh, Honestly, it'd be cool for Jarrett. I know it would put another notch on his belt, and he's already a Hall of Famer. Uh, so yeah, absolutely, I'd be for it 100%. Former NWA World Champion, TNA World Champion, former WCW World Champion, countless titles and great feuds in the WWF. Comes from that family, third generation wrestler. The Jarrett territory was ran by his father and with Lawler. Absolutely, he deserves another title shot and run, especially to be in your at his age in his 50s and to be in that good a shape, better than a lot of the young guys, and to perform at his level. Absolutely, he's well deserving of any run he can get, and especially a world title run. I'd be 100% down for that, without a doubt. But if not Jarrett, I would like to see something with Swerve Strickland. Absolutely, they're my two picks. If I had a choice, and if I was actually doing any of the writing and booking, I would put them one of them two guys in a title run picture with several matches with Moxley, and the babyface finally gets the victory. Absolutely, heck yeah. It would. I think that would be something that they'd have to start a program with. Start it off where make it make sense to put Dustin in that title picture for him to be able to even go for the world title. So they'd have to do a little more working on their end to make it make sense at this rate. And it doesn't take much a lot of times. You can start a program off with a little bit of nothing. Next thing you know, there you go. You got a feud on your hands. Um, but they'd have to work a little bit with that one. But absolutely, Dustin's well deserving. He should have had a world title run years ago somewhere. He didn't get it, but Dustin, um, in my personal opinion, and this may ruffle some feathers, I think out of the three roads, uh, Dustin was the best pure in ring of the three. Uh, 1988, he started. Yep. Yep. Well, yeah. Yep. Dude, um, talking about Dustin, I just think he's all around. He's so polished. And even in his, when he finally got polished enough, which would probably be around 92, 93, 92 ish, I guess. I'm just thinking this year. I may have the year off, but it's WCW. And he's World Tag Team Champion with Barry Windham. And I thought that was one of the best tag teams you could put together. But anyway, to me, Dustin was, he just was a natural, like his name. He was a natural at the business. And to me, once Dustin worked a few years and he got his promos down, he just was the full package. And athleticism. Dusty, now listen, Dusty was the better promo guy. Dusty was a good putting the matches together booker. But I don't know if Dustin's ever been a booker. I don't think he has. But when you talk about in ring, 100% all around athlete, Dustin Rhodes is that. And he was just always enjoyable to watch. And he deserves a program. Uh, Years ago for a world title. Will he get it now? Who knows? Um, does he need it to prove himself? Not a chance. He's already proven how great he is, and he's from that Rhodes family, so that speaks enough in itself. Um, but if we're talking about, I just find him to be the total package when it comes to being a pro wrestler. Dustin's got it all. But not to throw shade on Cody. Cody's very, very good. Cody's very entertaining, and Cody deserves where he's at. I'm not trying to say he doesn't. Um, and then, but anyway, you can't go wrong. You're talking about a legacy here, Dusty on down, so you can't go wrong. Love them all three. I love Dusty when I was a kid. I grew up, got a little older. I thought Dustin Rhodes is great, and I think Cody's great. So, but yeah, Dustin deserves everything he's ever got, plus what he's getting now. Absolutely. I agree 100%. Yeah. Yes. I do have I do have like 18 different Mount Rushmores, which is a sad fact about me because I have so many pro wrestlers over the years in this business that I love so much, and that's true. So the initial four I've talked about on a past podcast mean nothing really because I have so many that I think are on a high level. It's really hard for me to say. Um, but it is true. Jerry Lawler is probably my most favorite. But after that, it's like, what do I do? Because you got Flair, you got Dusty, you got Dustin. Look at all these guys I'm naming. You got Bret Hart, you've got Luger, you've got Sting, uh, the Von Erich family, the Kerry Von Erich. I mean, you got so many. That's right, Steve Austin. So many guys. So it's kind of hard to have a Mount Rushmore in anything because in most pro sports, there's always so many great athletes that it's hard to even pick that. You know, my favorite overall in basketball is Michael Jordan. But are there other great ones? Absolutely. So it's when you start comparing people, it gets rough sometimes. Um, but absolutely, but like we're talking here, Dustin, he's like in the same situation as Jeff Jarrett. These two guys, they're not aging at all. They are just proving right now at a shadow of a doubt that age doesn't mean nothing. That these guys are going to go and show that they can hang with younger talent, and that's what they've done. So, kudos to both. Love both of them to death. They were always great to work with because I got to work with both, and they've always been fun to watch. So I look forward to seeing what both of them do to finish off their career because they're just so enjoyable. You know, Mike, sometimes I think that they could get rid of their writing team or booking team or whatever they want to call it at AEW and maybe just hand them to us because that's not a bad idea. Yeah. I mean, I'm not opposed to seeing that. Do I think it's I know we probably won't see that, unfortunately. But it's not a bad idea. And I believe both of them could hold their own and prove that they still belong and still can go with so much younger talent in their 20s or whatever. They got it. They can go. And they both look good still. And I'd be up for it. Absolutely. I'd be up for anything to do with them two. And I'm glad to see that they're both in great shape still and can continue to entertain us because, you know, anytime I know that they're working on the shows, I know it's going to be good. I'm guaranteed that already before they even step foot in there. So you can't go wrong. So it's a good idea, but to answer that, I don't see it happening, but it's a great idea. Absolutely. I would love to see it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Mike, I tell you, we touched on a lot this episode. We touched on World Championship Wrestling again in an era that was highly talked about being bad, being TV was bad, and we watched them again. And we sat back and we watched it, and I tell you what, I enjoyed them. So I enjoyed the Russo era. I was part of that, and I never talked bad about it really. And other people have. And I'm just going to tell you this: I enjoyed that era. I enjoyed being there. I made it to WCW, and I wouldn't give up that era for nothing. So, bro, I enjoyed the episode today, just talking about it again. I also enjoyed bringing up some other things that are happening right now. And, you know, you're the guy to keep up with the new wrestling. You keep up with that a lot more than I do, but I do keep up. But you're more of a weekly watcher on everything than I am. But anyway, it's been great to talk about any of this today, and I appreciate you being on again with me on this episode, and I look forward to the next one. That's correct. Absolutely. With the Facebook Live, that'll make it where you can you can ask us right then and there. Uh, you can make a comment. You don't have to even ask anything. You just make a comment. That's something that's drawing up interest, and something that we probably will do here in the near future. Um, Not to mention, still lining them up. We got the guests coming on. Me and Mike will be interviewing guests in the next couple weeks coming up. They're going to be some local talent from the Carolinas and Virginia here locally. And we're also looking for talent that's not so local. And we're going to start off with the independent guys to give them a chance to talk about how they journeyed into the industry and how they got their start, and maybe what their first match they saw that made them say, "Hey, I want to be in the pro wrestling business." Stuff like that. And if you got any questions that you'd like for us, generic questions, of course, because we haven't got the guests lined up yet, and just say, "Hey, I wondered this or wondered that." We'll definitely pass that question along. But I'm looking forward to that. And then we're also going to bring on some WCW friends of mine, is what I'm working on as well, and some TNA days as well, and just talk to them. And if you guys want to send your questions on them episodes or whatever the case may be, let us know. But it's going to be fun, and we're going to start that in the next couple of weeks, having guests on. And if you have a topic that you want to hear about that you think, whether it's something that I've done in the past or whether it's something you want to know about right now going on in the pro wrestling and what our opinion is of it, let us know. So emails wrestleref123 at gmail.com. Like Mike said, please hit us up on the Facebook page. You can leave comments and questions actually on the page wall if you don't want to message us. Just let us know what you're thinking or wanting to ask. We're here for you. And Mike, you got anything else to leave the show with today? You're talking about the Ivan Koloff Memorial Show with the tag team tournament there with Tugboat making an appearance, the Mountie, Lodi from WCW, CW Anderson from ECW fame, Brock Anderson, the son of legendary Hall of Famer Arn Anderson. I'll be there refereeing the card. What else are you talking about? You're talking about March 29th in Clayton. Is that correct? All right. So that's what Mike's talking about. Don't forget about that, guys. I will be there live with all the stars I just named. I'll be refereeing the show. Some of these guys will be wrestling. Some will be there for a meet and greet. But nonetheless, you need to be there. Come on out. Fill out the gym. Every time we do a show in Clayton, we fill it out from wall to wall, and the floors are sweating. It gets so hot in there. Last time we were there in October, and the floors were sweating because of all the heat in there. Man, I can't wait until March 29th, Saturday night, for the Ivan Koloff Memorial Tag Tournament in Clayton. You don't want to miss it. Yes, it does. And that's another thing Mike's good about, guys. He reminds me not to forget even stuff so important as a show that I'm actually booked on. That's right. I'll be there at midnight. Thanks, Mike. The ring will be on. Hey, the ring will be on its way back from the building, but I'll stay there just to answer these questions. That is that is true. Hugging, signing autographs, kissing babies, and hugging people. Let's do it. I gotcha. All right. Well, hey, it's been great as always. I love talking about wrestling of any time, but WCW has a special place in my heart because I was always a lifelong fan, and I actually went there, and it's always fun, and that's all I